And good evening, everybody. Sorry about these small technical hitches. It wouldn't be my stream without small technical hitches, really, would it? It's all part of the ambience, I find, having technical things. But anyway, it's lovely to have you all here tonight, and thank you for all jumping into the chat as well. So there we are. We are here. It is Monday. It is time to talk science fiction and fantasy once again. But today is a special day. And hello, Chris Viking. Yay, good to see you. And Glenn is here. Of course, Glenn is here. Now, Glenn actually is the creator of that little intro sequence that you just saw. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was all Glenn's work. So great props to Glenn for that. Well done. Glenn did a lot of the promotional stuff actually for Nine Streams of Consciousness, which was excellent work. Excellent work indeed. So that's really good. Now, what's this all about? Well, the year. It's incredible, really. A year has passed since we completed that project. Steve is here. There's a few people in the chat who are contributors to this amazing work that we did. And Daddy Hoggy's here as well. Awesome. This is reunion. This is like authors reunited. What have you missed this morning? You haven't missed much actually, Daddy Hoggy. So I was a bit late starting. I've just run the intro sequence. I don't know if you so you can always catch it on the YouTube thing. I am recording this stream tonight in decent quality, so that I can upload to YouTube in a bit. So 2020 doesn't count. No time has passed. I know it's been a wacky old year, but anyway, this is in fact tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of the paperback version. This thing, of Nine Streams of Consciousness being made available to the public. Now, for those of you who are have joined this stream since a year ago, probably don't know what we're talking about. So it's probably worth me giving a little bit of an introduction. And when do we get our royalties? Right, actually, oddly enough, the royalty calculator, that's a very good question to do, because I did look up the contract we all signed, or I made you guys sign, and it says I'm supposed to have paid you after 3 months. So apologies for that, because I haven't. In my defence, COVID has thrown a bit of a spanner in some of my works, but I am actually going to go and sort that out this week. So all contributors to Nine Streams of Consciousness should get an email from me this week explaining how much money we have actually made from this book, from all our efforts. And I will endeavour to get that done this week, so you'll get a royalty statement. And there is some money to be paid, to be fair enough. It has to be divided 9 ways. After taxes. Let's put it like this: you're not going to be able to retire, all right? But there is some royalties. So I will get that sorted. It is very much on near the top of my to-do list. We'll get that sorted out. So that's really good. But yes, it's a year since we published, and we used Twitch. Okay, so this was quite a thing actually. Alan's already retired. You can't retire again though, Alan. Sorry about that. And Alan's already pledged his to charity. Excellent. Steve's going to buy several pints. Several might be optimistic. I can't remember I haven't worked out the numbers yet, to be fair. So you might get a couple of pints, Steve. Depends on where you buy your beer. Anyway, so yes, I mean it has been set now. So let's wind back, right? Because for those people who don't know what this is and have been watching the stream since joined the stream on Monday since last April, but they'll all be scratching their heads, going, what? So it's probably worth me giving some introduction. So this particular Monday Twitch stream had its genesis 3 years ago. I've just looked it up. 3 years ago, and basically the idea behind it was me waffling on, as you would expect, about writing stuff. So I'd come up with this idea 3 years ago after writing several books and Wouldn't it be would it be interesting potentially to people on Twitch? Because 3 years ago, Twitch was only about gaming, pretty much. There were some other bits and pieces kicking about, but it was mostly just about gaming. Now Twitch has broadened out over the years, and you've got creative things and making things and musician things and all sorts of stuff. Okay. Whereas 3 years ago, it was almost exclusively gaming and mostly focused on, but Twitch experimented with a few ideas. And I sort of had this idea of maybe, can we do something writing-ish on Twitch. And 3 years ago it was kind of like, well, let's see what happens. So I started out by giving a few sort of lectures, really, I suppose, on do's and don'ts about writing. You can still find those on my YouTube channel. They're still there on the early playlist of Wagar on Writing, which is where I stick these recordings. So if you wind that back 3 years, you'll find them. Anyway, I did about, I don't know, maybe about 10 or so. And then I started running out. I mean, believe it or not, I know, I started running out of things to say. To which the point, I asked the people on the stream at the time, so this would be about 2 years ago now, what do we want to do? We're here on Mondays and we chat about stuff, and it's nice to have the company, but maybe we should do something. This was a very, very, very stupid idea on my part, but that's what happened. Okay, should we do something? And then we kind of, I don't know whether we all got drunk or what happened, but we were on something, and we decided it would be a really, really, really good idea. Why don't we all on stream together write a book? So it seemed like a really good idea at the time, so we did, essentially. Now, what that actually meant, there were lots of, some people on the stream, Alan jumps out, and Daddy Hoggy here in the chat, have written stuff before, okay? An awful lot of people had been watching the stream going, I'd like to write a book, but I don't know if I can. How do I start? What do we do, And I basically said, look, it is possible to compose a book, edit it, set it, put it all together, put it on Amazon and sell it. It's a thing that you can do. And I said, well, why don't we put an anthology? And for those of you, what does that word mean? Well, an anthology is simply a collection of short stories. Okay, anthology is a posh word for a set of short stories. We kind of came up. We mulled this over a little bit and came up with some guidelines. Okay, so it's basically we'd say your maximum story length of about 10,000 words, which is a manageable thing. We want quite a few, make the book a decent size. What's it going to be about? Well, we liked science fiction and fantasy sort of stuff. We'd mostly been talking about science fiction at the time, so we said, well, let's make a science fiction series of short stories. And lots of people were buzzing around ideas. So you've got Glenn there, and you've got Steve and Chris Viking and Connor, and lots of others as well. And we had this idea. Maybe we can put together a book. Okay, so so it sounded like a perfectly straightforward idea. Okay, everybody writes 10,000 words ish. We put them all together. We turn it into a book, and we press the publish button. I mean, what could be simpler? Okay. So, but we decided to make it a lot more complicated for ourselves. First, we decided a couple of things. First, we wanted not just to be an ebook. We actually wanted to be able to say we've published a book, and the end result was, we did make a book. Okay, so that 9 Streams of Consciousness is a physical thing, which is awesome. You can actually go and buy it. And the second thing is we thought, well, we don't want it just to be a collection of sci-fi stories, which would have been fine, but we thought we could be a bit we could be a bit more ambitious. And what we did is we actually all worked together to build out the lore surrounding our story. Okay, so rather than just everybody going, I've got this science fiction idea, what we did is we collaborated over several weeks. Actually, it took us to get this hammered out. Over several weeks, we hammered out a kind of lore Bible and a timeline for our stories to be set. And I can show you that on the screen because that's how good it is. So we have where's the stream of consciousness lore? Let me just pop this up. So this is what we created. Now this was all done. Now one thing, important things to mention with 9 Streams of Consciousness is that very few of us have actually met each other. In fact, I've met, obviously Daddy Hoggy and Alan I have met in real life. I'm just trying to think, have I met the other guys? Certainly spoken to them a lot. Steve, have we met in person? I'm just trying to remember. my brain is getting a bit confused. But we're separated by vast geographical distances. Some of us in America, some of us. Where are you, Chris? Chris, you're in Scandinavia, aren't you? With Chris Viking, there's a clue there. Chris has met nobody else. I mean, Glenn and I have spoken a lot, but Glenn is in America and I'm in the UK. We've never met in person. So, most of the people in this anthology have not met each other. Okay, no, Steve and I haven't met. Okay, and Alan and I have only met once, briefly at Guildhall in Hull 3 or 4 years. So we haven't had the luxury of sitting in a room and sort of chewing the fat. Okay, in person, we've only done it remotely at all times. Chris Viking's in Sweden. There you go. So we've got places as far apart as Scotland and Sweden and Kent and Glenn, are you in California? I think Glenn's in California. Daddy Hoggy's in the exotic locales of Buckinghamshire. Is it Buckinghamshire or is it Hampshire? I can't remember now. Daddy Hoggy will tell me. I think it's Buckinghamshire, isn't it? Reading, Newbury way. So Glenn's in California. So we are disparate across the globe. So this is a global collaboration done via Twitch to create a science fiction book. So okay, in the grand scheme of things, then it's just a thing that we did. But I think it's actually quite impressive. Okay, we are on the same planet, yeah. Well, most of us are most of the time, yeah. But yeah, we did a lot of work, and we decided that we would. It is Berkshire, says Daddy Hoggy. Excellent, that's good. And we had another good friend of mine, Dave Hughes, who wrote the foreword for us in the end to kind of bring everything together. So a lot of people, some of whom I knew in advance, some of which I'd only met online, but the most majority of which I'd literally only met online and only able to collaborate to online, because almost immediately that we got the book out, COVID shut down international travel anyway. So there we are. But we spent a lot of time. Now from my rants on Elite and Elite Dangerous that I'm a big fan of getting the lore sorted out. Now the other authors on the stream can agree or disagree with me at their leisure. They're entitled to do so. But I think personally, the fact that we had consolidated lore for our stories meant that even though all the authors were writing in different time zones. In different periods, different epochs, to use Carl Sagan's famous word, epochs. He loved that word. They were consistent. They were sharing the same history, and I can kind of show you that history because we kept it. We actually put all the lore documents together. So this is what it looks like. So this is 9 Streams of Consciousness, the lore. Okay, so we kept it in the document, which we all collaborated on. So Glenn's quite right. Is the stories were all connected, but they could stand alone as well. They were self-contained. So if you liked a story, then that was great. But you could follow on, and there was some in some cases more obvious, some cases less obvious, but subtle connections between the stories because they existed in the same universe in kind of sort of chronological order. Here there might be some spoilers, so I will. So this is the difficulty of talking about the story. So multiple people writing one book. So it's not a single book. Nutellasaurs. That's a great username, by the way. It's an anthology, a collection of short stories, but all set in the same universe. So I won't go through all of this, but hopefully I'll be able to give you a sense of how much work we did to put all this together. So these are all the things that we had to do. So this is interesting in itself. This is all the things I basically listed down what we had to do. Okay, so roughly word count, and we played around with it. We wanted to aim for a book of about 100,000 words in total. I think we got enough. A lot more than that in the end. We aimed for maybe 15 authors. We ended up with 9, because that's where we got the name of the book from ultimately, 9 Streams of Consciousness. Now it's a little bit of a play on word, because streams of consciousness of course is what you do when you're typing and getting your story out of your head and into into form of some kind. So 9 Streams of Consciousness because we had 9 authors. we started with science fiction and fantasy, and then we said these are the things that we've got to do. Right, we've got to establish the lore. Then we've got to do some writing. We're going to need some art. We're going to need some critique. Okay, so this became a very interesting thing, and we'll talk about that later on. Then there was editing and proofreading. We needed a foreword. We needed some authors. We needed some bios. We needed a website to promote things. We needed to typeset it, because not only did we want an ebook version, but we wanted a paperback version too. Then we need the composition. Then we need to talk about the monies. Which I haven't done. I will do that. Then we actually have to publish it. Okay, and then so these were the sort of things that we did. Oh, Alpha Epic as well. So yeah, these are all the things that we listed out that we had to do. Okay, so there was a bit of project planning, right? You don't just jump in. You have to do some organising. So these were the sort of things we wanted to do: some world building, writing. And Drew to provide editing styles and style guide. Okay, so what we had to do is we had to try and get everything in the same sort of style. Not I don't mean writing style here, but I mean kind of I don't even mean grammatical style. I mean actually formatting style. So there were some rules we had to establish. Then we had to edit. Okay, now more on the editing in a bit. And then I had a progress tracker and everything. So here's everybody. Okay, I haven't quite finished it. This is a snapshot at some point in time as to where we were. I don't know when this was actually. This isn't actually near the end. This is probably about 2/3 of the way through. So what it's basically showing here is that Alan was wiping the floor with us all. True professional that Alan is. Alpha Epic did, yeah, and so that's the thing that's worth mentioning. There were quite a few people who set out, okay, and bless them, pressures of work or life or other things did get in the way. So while we had 15 people originally sign up for the project, only 9 of them made it through to the end, okay. And some of them on the stream, here today in the chat, may remember well that occasionally it was a bit of a struggle. Writing something and to a deadline to get it past critique and get it past editing and all those things is not easy. Okay, so we can see here, Alan was always a consummate professional. All right. It's like story outline, I'm done, I'm green. First draft, yeah, I've done that. Second draft, I've done that. Final draft, I mean, he was boom. Alan was ready. He was done. So Drew Wager, well, he was doing all right, but he hadn't finished. Glenn was good. Look, Glenn was down here. He was all over the. Yeah, he was on it. So that was good. So we were tracking progress to see how were we doing. Now, different people write, of course, at different speeds. And different people have different time together. So, my idea, let's just get 15 writers together on stream. We'll all crack out 1,000 words a week or 2,000 words a week. It'll all be done in a few weeks' time. Everyone will finish round about the same time. Nah. That's not what happened, okay? Some people finished really quickly. Some people were really struggling to get it done. Alan doesn't professionally making money. Well, sort of, I suppose. You just when I say consummate professional, Alan, I just mean you just showed it how it was done. You showed us how it was done. So we did. To be fair, I mean, I think Glenn and I, Glenn was huge support to me, because I suppose this was sort of my idea in the first place. So I was sort of the ringmaster, but Glenn was very much my right hand man in all this sort of stuff. Okay, so Glenn was out there cajoling people along when I was unable to do so, and Glenn either takes quite a big share of the blame or quite a big share of the credit, whichever it is. Okay, Glenn takes a lot. Let's say Glenn takes a lot of responsibility for it. Because Glenn was propping me up and stopping me from fainting, exactly right. Because trying to get, I mean, anybody who's ever done any project management, and I've done a fair bit in my life, when you're paying people to do work, you can kind of slap them around a bit in a metaphorical sense and tell them to G up, okay? Whereas when people are doing something voluntarily, you haven't really got a very big stick to bash them with, so you have to sort of use a lot of carrots. So get it, trying to get people across, and to be fair, this was something that for some of us was fairly well established. So Alan and I have written things before. Daddy Hoggy's written things before. We were experienced hands. We knew what we were doing. we could crank out a short story without straining too much. But for an awful lot of people in this group, this was the first time they'd ever tried anything like this. Okay, first time they'd tried anything like this, and it was an uphill struggle. They were having to learn a lot, as well as find the time to write. Their work. People became conscious that their work was going into the public domain, possibly for the first time, and that's quite an intimidating thing. And Steve, I remember some of the struggles we had with dear Steve. He made it in the end. That was the main thing, but it wasn't easy. Getting things done and getting things critiqued, and we'd set ourselves a quality gate. We weren't trying to make it perfect, but we were trying to make it as good as we could make it. We were working on those sort of things and trying to get everything to what we felt as a group was an acceptable level of quality was a big ask, because you'd write your first draft of your story and then everybody else would pile in and go, I think you need to do this. It was hard work. So there was a lot of project management-y type stuff. What's the progress? Have you made any progress this week? And then somebody said, no, I haven't been able to make any progress this week. And you can kind of sort of feel the slight sighs from everybody else going, but I've done another 100 words. Why haven't you? And then people would feel a little bit guilty because they hadn't been able to keep up the pace. And you're dealing with all those sort of human issues of trying to get something done. So there we go. It's tricky stuff. It is tricky stuff. But we did do a lot of lore. Okay, I'm not going to spoil the entire story here, but we designed a solar system. Okay, we designed a solar system from scratch. We put it in a real place. So there is actually a star here, the HIP 88527 system. It does actually exist in real life. Whether or not these planets go around it, of course we don't know. But we designed a star system where we could tell our stories. Okay, so it's a little bit constructed, but we had a gas giant with an Earth-like moon. We had binary rocky planets. We had a terrestrial atmosphere with a Venus-like atmosphere, and then we had a strange orbital construction further out in the solar system that was a bit weird. All sorts of stuff was going on out there. Different versions of the map, as you can see. And then we went into quite a lot of detail. So this is the Earth-like world where quite a lot of the stories were set, and we did a map. And we wanted to work out various things, and this planet was tidally locked to a parent gas giant, so we were all collaborating on generating this lore, which worked. And different people chipped in with different skills. Okay, because some people were really, really good at drawing maps. Some people were really good at modelling solar systems. Okay, so all this stuff, this was artwork that people did because that was something that they could do. And so on and so forth. So lots and lots of really, really good collaboration, and we played around with the names of various different things to kind of capture stuff, and had debates on what we should call it, and so on and so forth, as part of all this kind of lore. So there are some aliens out there and some various bits and pieces going on. And then there's a timeline. Okay, now so this is slightly spoiler territory, but I'm going to just scroll through it. Now what I want you to observe is the color coding. Okay, so different things are coded in different colors, because those are the bits of there we go, I've gone past it. Those are the bits of the lore that each story would cover, so they were sort of chronological in sequence. And then we basically had, as we were going through it, what sort of questions do we want answered by the stories, and how much do we want to leave to the reader to kind of figure out, and so on and so forth. So there's lots and lots of stuff that we put together as a group, and this was just in the first few weeks. Historical timelines, appendices about various things and creatures, how the gas giants was constructed, what they looked like, what the alien life forms might be like. All sorts of stuff was put together in there, and then maps and all sorts of good stuff. So a lot of lore was put together Okay, a lot of lore was put together, a lot of thinking. So we all kind of had our favourite science fiction thing that we wanted to kind of chuck in, and we debated as to which ones seemed reasonable, which ones didn't seem reasonable. But what we did, we ended up with a consolidated piece of timeline history from pre-industrial age on Earth, way thousands of years later than the current day, which meant we could write stories in various bits and pieces of each one. So that's kind of the idea that we had. And then the 15 stories that we end up with cover time periods within that timeline. And they start at the beginning and they kind of run to the end, and then they kind of all come full circle in an interesting sort of way. So that's the sort of the lore background. Okay, that's the lore back. That's what we did. And I'm just going to segue in because Glenn put a lot of work into some of the promotional videos, so I've nabbed them, and I'm going to just play another one at this point because we got the kind of halfway point for 8:30. So here is another one. So I'm just going to pop over to this for a moment. So there we go. That was another one of Glenn's masterful kind of little YouTube videos, segues that he did just to kind of promote the idea of the book. So the key thing is what we were trying to achieve is absolutely everything that you need to make a book we were going to do ourselves. Okay, so there was no publisher involved here, there was no agent involved here. Literally everything we had to do to make a book beginning to end we had to do ourselves. That was the rule. Okay, so that everybody on the street, guided by me, or as it turned out, herding cats by me, is basically is what we were trying to do. So for a few of you who've just joined, hello Fulbert, lovely to see you. Thank you very much for your music, by the way. You must definitely do some more of that. That was very, very cool. So more about that in due course. But lovely to see you as well. Lucky Luigi just joined in 9 streams of cop. Well, now this is a book, so this is the origin of this stream. Okay, so just a recap very, very briefly. Tonight we're doing a celebration of the first anniversary of the book that we published here on this Twitch stream. So 9 Streams of Consciousness was a book, there we are, that we, the original kind of founders of this Twitch stream on Monday evenings, 2 years ago, began working on a collaborative project to write a book. And a year ago we published it, and that's where this Twitch stream's come. Now this Twitch stream has sort of evolved now more into a sort of science fiction, fantasy writing kind of explore things kind of thing. But a couple of years ago we were actually using it to put a book together, and we're sort of celebrating that tonight because it's a good opportunity to have a look at it. So that was the law. Okay, that was the law. But the rule was basically we would start with nothing. And with only our own resources, the people in the Twitch chat and on stream, we would do everything it was required to do to put a book out to market. Absolutely everything, with no real outside assistance other than that. So that's quite good. So that was the thing. So then came the writing advice. Okay, so before I said to people, right, you can go off and write a book. It's some stuff you need to know, all right? Now, a lot of you will be familiar with this. Sorry, my nose is getting really itchy again. It's the heat from these light bulbs. But let me just show you this. So notes on grammar. So this was my advice, okay? Slightly tongue-in-cheek. Let me just zoom it up a tiny bit so you can see it easily on screen. But this is the advice I sent through to all my fellow collaborators. Is back up, okay? Because have 3 backups. You're backing up when you're writing. Backing up is incredibly important because it's very, very easy to lose some work, and that's not good. Okay, I encouraged everybody to use Microsoft Word wherever possible, and we stuck with Calibra for ebook conversion as well. So there's lots of little technical things that we had to kind of deal with. A warning that I sent out really early on. When you're writing is don't put any clever stuff into your document, okay? So don't trust USB sticks, they're the evil spawn of Satan. Don't trust or believe the grammar checker, it's the errant son of the spawn of Satan. So I have strong opinions on automated grammar checkers. They to be fair, they do have their uses, but okay, be careful. It was very important not to put clever stuff, i.e., graphics and tables and weird formatted stuff into your document when you're prepping it for turning it into a book. Okay, ebooks. For those of you who don't know, technically, when you read an ebook on your Kindle or your Nook or whatever ebook reader you use, you're actually reading a simplified form of HTML. And if you can't render your whatever the clever thing is that you put in Word or word processor into HTML cleanly, it won't work in an ebook. So you've got to limit yourself to very simple HTML renderable content if you're going to create an ebook, and that can really trip you up if you've done something a bit too clever. So it's worth knowing that before you start, is the point I was making. Never use find and replace all. You have been warned. This is like doing needlework with an axe, okay? Now, I've had an excellent situation where I learnt this lesson, where I did a find and replace on the character's name, only to find that my character's name was short enough that it existed inside other words. And so when I did the find and replace, lots and lots of other words were corrupted inadvertently by my name. So don't ever use find and replace in a book, okay? Because it's just too big. You will miss something and you will screw something up. Don't do find and replace, all right? Don't put graphics into it, okay? Graphics you have to do at the end, okay? So don't worry about it anyway. Don't put tables in there, for God's sakes. Don't muck about with different font sizes, because it's an ebook. It will render all sorts of weird stuff. So don't play about it. Keep it plain vanilla text as much as possible, okay? Stick with 10 to 14 point size. Left justify only. Here's a classic piece of advice. This is the one that screams amateur. All right, don't splash copyright first name last name all over your work. All right, nothing screams amateur more loudly than this. You automatically gain copyright by having written the thing. Okay, and that's law in almost all countries because it's internationally agreed. All you need to do is put a small copyright statement at the beginning. You're fine. Okay, so you've sort that. Now this is a really good piece of advice. Okay, this one here. If you're wanting to write and you want to publish as an ebook, for God's sake. really strongly recommend this. Don't use tabs, okay, or extra spaces, returns, or page breaks to format your document. Please, God, don't do it. Now, I said that at the beginning of all this, and it's still some of them sneaked in, all right? Because when you try and turn it into an ebook, weird really weird bad stuff will happen to your ebook when you're looking at your ebook and go, why has it suddenly stopped halfway through a page, and then it's like 3 pages of blankness in the ebook, and you realize that somebody's put a tab in and the ebook renderer has gone, I don't know what to do. So when you're writing something you want to turn into an ebook, do not, I repeat, do not use tabs, extra spaces, returns, or page breaks, okay? Just type it in text. Then you'll be able to figure the formatting out at the end. Now, this caused us several weeks of absolute grief, all right? Because let's say not everybody did. I can only stress that again. This caused us a lot of extra work. Here's some other stuff. Don't proofread your own work. It's pointless. You need other people to do this for you. Don't use close friends and family to critique, because they won't be honest. They're lying. They're trying to protect your feelings. All right. So slightly tongue-in-cheek here, but there's some serious points to be made that it's really hard for most of us to proofread our own work because we know what it's supposed to mean. Okay, so we can't see the errors. We physically can't see them. Our mind blots them out because we know what the thing is supposed to say. So we see that. So you need to give it to other people to proofread. Don't use close friends and family unless you can afford to lose those friends and family. Yeah, that's a good point. But generally, close friends and family will basically say, yeah, they'll usually give you feedback. Yes, it was lovely. I thought it was really interesting. Yes, I think you've done a great job. Well done. I'm so pleased that you wrote a book. It's really, really good. Yes, I enjoyed it immensely. Just totally and utterly useless, I'm afraid. So you need people who are going to go, yeah, this bit over here, it doesn't really make sense. This bit over here, this is just totally unrealistic. Why would they do that? Then you've got this massive plot hole here that I don't understand your motivation for this character at all. Okay, so this is the sort of stuff I was dishing out. Okay, you need to spend almost as long on editing and proofreading as you do on writing. This is a hard lesson. Okay, if you want to write a book. And some of you have been seen on Twitter that I've just finished the first draft of Doom Doctor Revenge. Huzzah! Now the whole work starts because I've got to edit the damn thing. You need to spend almost as long on editing and proofreading as you do on writing. Now, it's not going to be quite that bad for Doom Darks because I've been doing a little bit of that as I've been going along. But generally, okay, and this is a general rule of thumb, it's not specific, but plan accordingly. If you hate your story and never want to read it again by the end of the process, then you've probably just about done enough. So when you're heartily sick, and I think some of the authors who were involved in this on the stream will probably agree that they were pretty sick and tired of the process by the time we finished. Okay. Assassin says my friends wouldn't care about hurting my feelings. So Doom Dark won't be out for 2 more years. No, it won't be quite that bad because I've made a head start on it. But it's tricky. It's tricky. You need to find people who can work with it and stick with metric measurements. That was just a style choice, okay, for us for the time being. So otherwise we didn't have to translate between furlongs, yards, and fathoms, and just stick to kilometers. Okay, kilometers is good. And then there's some general writing advice. Okay, so avoid cliches. Rang like a bell, went off like a rocket. Okay, think of something new under the sun. All those sorts. Don't use cliches. Never use the word suddenly unless it's in dialogue. Suddenly a thing happened. No. A thing happened. That's fine. Okay. Another thing that is very common for new writers is don't begin, just happen. All right. So Justin began to cough. It's weak. All right. Justin coughed. It's strong. Okay. Subtle difference. All those sort of things. Okay. Obliterate weak adjectives. So this is something, if you ever write a book and send it to a professional editor, they will rip through. I don't know quite what it is. Okay. And anything ending in the letters ly, any adverb or adjective here, you've got to obliterate them. Okay, you just got to take them out. Editors hate them. The funny thing is, we're taught, almost all school children are taught in school, certainly in the UK, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but in the UK, all school children are told to put loads and loads of adjectives and adverbs in. And then editors basically come along and machine gun them out of existence. So any words ending in ly, so it's basically you've not done the description properly. So here's an example: the ship was slightly damaged. It's perfectly good English. It's fine, but a better way of putting it is the ship was damaged, suffering minor hull leaks. It was nothing that the space dock engineers wouldn't be able to fix. Okay, it's a better description. It's better to do it that way. So Gunblade Lady, don't have words ending in ly. Really? Yes, really. Except in dialogue. Dialogue is okay, but not in the main body of So your slightlys, your quietlies, your anything ending ly, you've got to look at really, really, really hard and decide whether or not you absolutely need it or whether there's a better way of doing it, because an editor will rip those to shreds. Okay, just trust me on that one. That's a very big deal when writing. Don't say the ship was slightly damaged. Say the ship was damaged, suffering some minor hull leaks. That's better. Okay, so those are things to be aware of. So here's another one, modifying the verb. So this is it, we're going to die, she said grimly. Okay, if you feel you need to modify the verb here, the dialogue should tell you what the problem is. Okay, so this is it, we're going to die, she said, or just so this is it, we're going to die. We don't need to tell the reader that it's a grim situation. That should be obvious already, so we don't overwrite. Okay, all those little bits and pieces are good examples. So here we go. Clearly, eventually, actually, enthusiastically. People have put it in the stream. Really, slightly, simply. All of those Lee words. Just zap them as much as you can. All right, zap them as much as you can. Another thing that people do a lot of, which is just unnecessary, is they get a bit upset, or they feel they should replace the word said with something else. Okay, you don't need to. Okay, you just don't need to. So don't feel you've got. I mean, people do a lot. So you don't need to expectorate, rejoin, exclaim, interject, snarl, whisper, shout, blare, chortle, hiss. Just said. Okay, it's absolutely fine. It's the dialogue itself that matters. The stuff that's in the quotes. Another one that's really common is overuse of the exclamation mark. Okay, you see people in emails and text use multiple exclamation marks. That particularly winds me up. But in a book, you can only have one exclamation mark for every 10,000 words. All right, that's it. That's your limit. So in a full length novel, you should only have you should only have about 10 exclamation marks. That is your ration. Okay, do not use them all the time. It gets really irritating for the reader really quickly. Because you keep jolting them. It's horrible. Save your place to capitals. Stop shouting at me. Okay, just don't do it. It's too much. Okay, you kind of have to wean yourself off exclamation marks. It's quite funny. Don't. And here's another one. Don't. I can't believe exclamation marks are off limits. It's all that sort of stuff. Don't info dump. Info dumping is another bad writing thing. Okay, so your characters live on if your characters do live on a spaceship, which in science fiction is fairly common, you absolutely mustn't explain how anything works. All right, because you don't explain the commonplace things in your life to the reader. Okay, so here's an example of it. Here's an example of a wrong version from kind of Elite. Okay, so Jake looked out of the viewport. There was a long queue of ships. The queue was due to all the new regulations enforced by Galcop to ensure commanders had the necessary permits to travel to and dock at Lave Orbital. Bad writing. Okay, what you should do is you say, Jake cursed as he looked out of the viewport. Damn Galcop and their regulations. It looked like they were in for a long wait before docking at Lave Orbital. Tells you the same thing, but doesn't info dump on you. Okay, so you're teasing. The reader gets the fact that there's a whole bunch of regulations and stuff that are kind of really odorous, but it's a much more natural way of that information getting to the reader. Subtle differences sometimes make a big difference. Show don't tell. Okay, so you've probably heard this on a billion writing streams. All right, show don't tell. Classic piece of advice, but what does it mean? Okay, what does it mean? Don't because you'll get experienced writers going, show don't tell, show don't tell. And you go, what the hell does that mean? All right. So basically, this is what it means. Okay, so here's a classic version. Nicola was really nervous and worried as she stepped into the spaceport. Okay, that is telling. You're telling the reader precisely what Nicola is feeling. Okay. But there's no way for the reader or any other character in the vicinity of Nicola in this case to be telepathic and know precisely what Nicola is feeling. So how do we know that she's nervous and worried? You've just told the reader that she's nervous and worried. That's bad writing. Okay. So here's the alternative. Nicola's hands were sweaty. She clumsily dropped her ident pass as she stepped into the spaceport. Okay, that's showing. You go, well, why is she sweaty? Why has she just dropped her? She's nervous. Okay, that's the difference. That's showing and telling. All right. This is really important. Okay, so that's one of the most important rules of writing fiction is show don't tell, and it's overused, but that's basically what it means. Is don't spell out specifically what the reader has to know. Let the reader figure it out for themselves. Okay, because the readers aren't dumb. Okay. The readers get the fact that something is making Nicola nervous, okay? But they get that from what you're showing them, not what you're telling them. Very important. Then the dialogue, okay? Now, if you can't read your dialogue out in front of a mirror, if it feels clunky and horrible when you read it out loud, it is clunky and horrible, and you need to rewrite it, okay? So I mean, it's very, to start with, it's very, very kind of weird. I read the dialogue I write out in front of a mirror, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Okay, so a few people have always said, some of the dialogue in some of your stories works really, really well. How do you get to do it? Because I read it to myself in front of a mirror, and if it doesn't sound like some people having an argument or speaking, I rewrite it. Okay, so you have to spend a lot of time on dialogue. Okay, and then describe the effect and not the mechanics. So this is classic spaceship battle stuff. Okay, the ship took a missile to the lower flank. The shields were drained. The pilot banked to the left. Very dull. No energy in that. Okay. The missile slammed home, vaporizing the feeble shields and sending the ship into a brain-jarring spin. The pilot wrestled with the controls in a desperate attempt to regain his course. Same thing, more energy. Okay. So these things. Anyway, we're nearly at the bottom now. So grammar and all that. Okay, now I've said before, somebody asked me the question on Zoom, do you need to be an English expert to write a book? No, you don't. Okay, you don't need any major academic qualifications to write a book. I have a single O level in English. All right, that's all I've got. But it's worth knowing about plurals, ownership, and contraction. So you should know the difference between its and its. You should know the difference between there, and there. This is obviously in English. Or where, we're, and we're. Don't use of instead of have. Can when you mean may, etc. So there's a few bits and pieces like that worth learning. If you haven't come across it, Lynn Truss's book, Eat, Shoots and Leaves, is really good, okay, at learning the basics. And then a few other bits and pieces about quotes and dialogues and stuff. Don't overuse commas, otherwise you'll just sound rather like Captain Kirk. You don't need brackets in a fictional book. So there's a whole bunch of guides in it. If anybody's interested in this, actually, I can make it available offline. It was available to all the 9 streams of consciousness person. It's my kind of version of a primer for writers. You can use italics, sentence punctuation, preferences, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So, lots of other bits and pieces as well, and where to use semicolons, various other bits and pieces like that. I've used quite a lot of elite stuff here, which is, I didn't realise I'd done that, about colons, semicolons, and ellipses. Now the ellipsis is an interesting one. I use it quite a lot, and I use it wrong, but I use it the way I'm consistent in my wrongness. All right, you quite often see this in dialogue, 3 dots, which kind of indicates that the person speaking has sort of drifted off in the middle of the conversation, which is a valid technique, okay? But use it sparingly, otherwise it appears you just can't make up your mind as to whether your sentence is ever going to end. Yeah. It's all very confusing stuff. So that was my sort of guide that I gave all the writers. Go through this, because this will help you to write something that's going to be have a chance to get past the editors. And Scolio's here. Scolio the most. Yay! Good to see you, my friend. So those are all the sorts of things. Non-English person here. What's the of have thing? Okay, so Sophia, the of have thing is there's a problem in English when. Let me actually write it for you. The correct way of saying something, because it's clearer. It doesn't make sense unless you read it. Here's a sentence. Okay, so I could have taken charge, but I didn't. Okay, so that's a perfectly reasonable piece of English. But if you say it quickly, I could have taken charge, but I didn't. Okay, what a lot of people hear is this. Now the abbreviation is that. Okay, that's a perfectly reasonable abbreviation. I could have taken charge, but I didn't. But what happens is an awful lot of people assume it actually is that. Okay. I could have taken charge, but I didn't, which is grammatically bad. All right. And there's lots of little things like that in English which go wrong because people hear it and assume that's what they're hearing is a word, which it actually isn't. It's sometimes sort of an abbreviation. So the correct English is I could have taken charge, but I didn't, because have is a verb. I have, you have, we have taken charge, whereas of clearly isn't a verb. It's I can't I of. It's not a verb at all. So it's I could have taken charge isn't English, it's bad, but it's kind of what you hear when you listen to it. Okay, so all sorts of things like that are problematic, and the editor will go, that's a red rag to a bull, that sort of stuff. You've got to know your English a little bit to get rid of things like that in the first place. And different languages will have all sorts of things that are similar, but that's a particularly a tricky one. I mean, the other ones. So it's is not the same as it's, because that's an abbreviation of it. It's called a possessive. So if I say it's what's a good example of these two? This one is which way? I'm trying to remember this one, but so these they don't mean the same thing. Okay, one is possessive and one isn't, and little things like this are grammar that you've got to kind of work out. It's the same with there, and there. So they all are pronounced the same way, which is very confusing. So there is something in the dark. Behind the curtain. This one actually means they are. It's a shortened form of they are. So they are over there. Over there behind. Yeah, is correct. There behind the curtain. And this one is a possessive again. So their curtains are. Being used for something. Okay, so not brilliant examples, but the same word sound, you've got to be able to appreciate the differences between them, because unfortunately in English they all sound the same when you're listening to them, but they're written differently. And two and two, I mean, there's a classic one. Okay, so two and two, so that's the number two. That one is from here to somewhere else, so it's kind of an operator between two places. The distance to the object is increasing. That's okay. This one is basically kind of equals as well. So you might have a question about it. That viper is closing on us too, so as well, and and etc. Okay, so the list just goes on and on and on. It's just a nightmare. So those things are things to be aware of, which will trip you up. So so what I basically tried to do with 9 contracts, here's a whole bunch of stuff, guys, you need to be aware of when you're writing. Okay, because I'm just going to go back and when we get to the editing stage. We're going to have to sort all of that out, because it's very hard. Now, when you write a story, you just get it out of your head and you write. Okay, and certainly as you start on a writing journey, what happens is you make all of those mistakes. Okay, you make all of those mistakes. You get the show don't tell creeping in, because it's a lot easier just to show. It's a lot easier just to tell. It's easier to write telling than it is to do showing. It's very easy to make grammatical mistakes and spelling mistakes and so on and so forth, all those kind of things. It's very, very, and as you get better, you'll notice it and you'll start to fix it. So grammatical errors. And then there's dialogue, okay? So there's, dialogue is, you've got to be very careful in dialogue that it sounds like people speaking and not having a lecture. Now here's a little exercise which is fun for you, okay? Don't be weird about it, but the next time you're in a place, I mean, obviously now that COVID's beginning to unlock, it'll probably be easier. Next time you're in a place that there's some conversations happening, if you're in a coffee shop or something and you just happen to be having a coffee and there's some other people nearby, I'm not suggesting you should eavesdrop on their conversations, but it's an interesting exercise to objectively listen to the dynamics of a conversation that naturally happens between two people. Because what you'll notice is a few things. One, they never ever use each other's names in conversation, other than when the conversation starts. Okay, hey Jackie, how you doing? That's it. Okay, after that, they never ever refer to each other's names. That's the first thing that natural dialogue has. So you see an awful lot of dialogue in books where it's, oh Jackie, how are you doing? Well, Victoria, I'm doing fine today. Oh Jackie, that's lovely. Isn't it lovely to see you and have a coffee? Oh well, Victoria, it is a beautiful day outside. People don't do that. Okay. But you see a lot of dialogue like that. Okay, so that's the first thing. The other thing that you'll notice is that people interrupt each other constantly. Okay, they're always either finishing each other's sentences. Oh yeah. When you said that thing about that, oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. What was it about? Oh yeah, Jack. Yeah, he did that thing, didn't he? With the yeah. Oh. What was he talking about? He was doing the thing with the, when he bought that car, wasn't it? Yeah, the car. Oh, the car, yeah. Do you remember the car? Yeah, oh, that was so cool with the car. Yeah. What colour was that? Yeah, that's how people talk in dialogue, okay? Now, if your book is kind of like, Jack's bought himself a new car, don't you know? It's a blue one. It's got a 1.6 litre engine and it's got a lovely leather interior inside. It's very, very nice. He showed it to me the other day and I saw the windows and it had a boot and it had 5 doors and the tyres was lovely. That's not how people speak. They don't do a great big long paragraph of text, all right? They're constantly interrupting each other and that's how conversations happen, okay? And if you listen in, not necessarily listening on the topic of the conversation, but just the way that people interact when they're talking in a conversation, you tune your ear into the way that they talk and the way that they finish each other's sentences and interrupt each other. If you can grab that essence, that will make your dialogue that much better, okay? Because that's how people talk, okay? That's how people talk. Alan says there are a few people who do it, but they're unusual and they're just weird, okay? So all those sort of things are worth kind of having a think about. So that's good. Now, so with 9 streams of consciousness, what we did, I basically said, there's your guidance. Go away and write, because your first draft. And I said your first draft will be rubbish. Don't worry about it. Your first draft will be rubbish. Okay, that's just a given. There's nothing you can do about it. JL98 knows a few people who do speak in full paragraphs. I'd avoid people like that. Okay. Yeah, some people don't stop. Yeah, there are people like that, which can be annoying. So all of those sort of things. This is a useful way also of differentiating your characters. If you've got a character who only speaks in very short sentences, if you've got one that speaks in long, kind of rambling sentences, that can be quite a nice character differentiator as well. So those are things to pick up. So I basically said 9 streams of consciousness. We had the law. It was all established end to end. And everyone was then writing their story. Okay, so with a bit of prodding, how you doing, and we ended up basically saying, look, we want to get everybody to a first draft. So tell the story, get it down on a piece of paper, and then we'll start critiquing things. Okay, somebody talking about somebody saying "sir" all the time. Suffice to whoever says it creates intimacy, it just makes me want to run away. I think that's probably true, yeah. So Drew, how is it? Drew, it's lovely to see you, Drew. It's creepy, isn't it? I wouldn't like that at all. JL98 has to work with them. Oh dear, boy, never mind for that. So get the first draft done was my instruction. Get the first draft done. And then what I said is, right, okay, now you're going for the baptism of fire, my friends. Now you're going for the baptism of fire. So for all of the people who are still in on the project, I think the numbers have dropped a little bit by this point. the people who are still in the project. I said, right, what we're going to do now is I'm asking for volunteers, I said. I'm going to take your story and we're going to edit it live on stream, okay? Edit it live on stream. Which was a bit of a baptism of fire. So I think Glenn may have gone first. So Glenn stepped into the searchlight. And literally in a nice way, though, and this is the important thing about critique, okay, is what you're trying to do is, provide some support for writing. Glenn volunteered for tribute. So basically up pops Glenn's, carefully crafted and beautifully constructed first draft on the screen, and I literally start going through it with a red pen, okay, to the benefit of everybody else on stream. So all of the writers had to go through this baptism of fire where I would basically go through and say, no, you can't have that, that's bad dialogue, or that's show don't tell, or tell don't show, whatever, which way around it was, this is bad sense construction, this paragraph is too long, bored. Get back to the action, cut, all these sort of things. So basically everybody emerged battered and bruised from several editing sessions, which and the thing is that you, as a writer, you need that, okay? As a writer you need it, because trust me, when you start out writing, you just won't be very good at it, all right? And I'm sorry to say that because it sounds incredibly harsh. You will not be very good, and you need a lot of improvement. It's just inevitable, all right? There's a lot of things that you just instinctively will get wrong, because the only way to not get it wrong is to learn that you've made a mistake. And there is a lot of craft to writing, okay, that isn't immediately obvious. It's like any skill. And I said, before on the stream before, you can't just decide to wake up and be a brilliant musician. I'm going to be a brilliant musician today. You can't do it. You can't just go there. You have to learn, you have to practice, you have to be told what you're doing wrong, you have to improve, you have to practice, you have to be told what you're doing wrong, you have to improve, you have to practice, etc., etc., etc. There's only one way to do it, and that's to put the hard work in, okay? And so my poor writers on this project, by now, I think in some cases begin to regret that they ever got involved, had to go through this painful process of having their work pulled apart. And in some cases, we only got, in the course of an hour and a half or whatever it was, we only got 1/3 through a section of a story. And so the instruction was, okay, so now you've got some guidance on the bit that we did get to look at. You've got to go through and fix the rest of it yourself. Okay, and then we had to keep going round and round until we were getting to the place where the story was actually becoming publishable quality, because the essence of the stories were all there. There was nothing wrong. And this is the important thing about editing, is editing cannot fix a bad story, but it can really polish a gem, okay? So if your story is good in its heart, i.e. it's got a nice twist, it's got some interesting characters, it's got an interesting premise, it builds up some tension and then leaves the reader going, whoa, at the end. If that stuff's there, it can be fine-tuned and improved. Editing will never make a story, but editing can always improve a story. So there we go. Let's a few bruises. Shenron says, somehow I'd love to try and get you destroyed. Must be a masochist. Well, I'm not. There's no way I'm perfect either. So I had to submit to the editing myself, and I did that on stream. I self-edited my own one, I think, at one point, and basically ripped myself apart, which was quite funny. So we did all that. And we were conscious that we had to go through that rigmarole of editing and editing again and editing again and editing again until we were getting heartily sick of each other's stories because we knew them so well by this point. And it was just a lot of work. Okay, just a lot of work. And you have to keep doing it again and again and again and again and again. Now, what was interesting, and Glenn's actually pointed this out, is that some of the writers were much better at other things than some of the others. So some of the writers really struggled with a voice for dialogue. Okay, they couldn't easily make their characters sort of come to life. Whereas others that just came out with it straight away, but had problems in other areas like description or point of view or all those sort of things. So it's so satisfying to find things wrong in Drew's story, and there were loads of things wrong. That sort of things. I don't know if one of these actually. This one's. I'm just looking at here. You think you have time? This was my story. Does this one have any of the? It doesn't have any of the. No, it's just got the images in. I was just wondering whether or not it had any of the editing comments in it. Okay, yeah. No, so this one, I don't know who did this, but anyway, this is my story, and as you can see, somebody, I don't know who this was. Somebody's put in some. Some critique. Maybe this was me, or maybe this was Glenn, or somebody else. But here's an example. The woman's voice was still upbeat, but now strained. Is that a tell? Yes, it was. So I had to edit that out. Okay. Here's another one. I've got to repent. Keep the faith. Is it too Bon Jovi? So we went through all these sort of things and tried to prove it. And here's some other dump the brackets, telling, suggestion, side, treat. So this is my story, and I'm supposed to be the guy who's got the most experience here, arguably, I suppose. But lots of comments and things to check and things to improve, etc., etc., etc. So no writer is immune to this. Okay, any writer who starts writing and says, "No, I write perfect prose now. I'm absolutely brilliant." No, they don't. Okay, you just can't. Gunbay then says, I'd be tempted to send you a short funny story I wrote years ago, but no, it's a grammatical mess. It's definitely not science fiction though. Daddy Hoggy's a good point there. So bear in mind these stories were related. So if somebody edited something in one story, it could potentially have ramifications in another. So we had to be, not only did we have to do a scan for consistency of editing, we also had to do continuity checks between the stories. When somebody said, oh yeah, I've just removed that character from my story, somebody else would go, but I've got a line from that character in mind. Put her back in. So all that sort of stuff, you had to get all this stuff aligned. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Now, do these stories require elite? No, so they're not elite based. Okay, they are science fiction, but they're not based off elite. We wanted to produce something that was completely 100% independent of elite, even though a lot of us have played elite and like elite. We wanted to have complete creative freedom and not have any licensing implications, to publishing a book. So no, not based on elite, but it has spaceships and it has science fiction-y stuff and aliens and mysteries and all that kind of good stuff. But no, it's not based in the elite universe. And Daddy Hoggy there. So my story ended up being about 1,000 words longer to take into account all the tweaks. So there was a bit of flexibility coming into those kind of things. So eventually we got through the editing, okay, and then we had to design, a cover, because we needed a cover. So we did do that. Here's the cover. This went through a few iterations. So that's the cover that ended up. There's the graphical version, which obviously ended up on the book as well. Nine Streams of Consciousness, the anthology of Humanity Second Chance. So we put things in it that had relevance to the story. All that sort of stuff. So actually that's a low res version of it. I don't think that's the final version, but it's one that I've got in the file at the moment. I'm not sure, is that the final? It is actually the final. No, it's not quite the final version actually. That's an earlier one, so it must have been moved around a little bit since we did that one. So lots of bits and pieces like that we had to finalise. Then you also had to work out the background. Now there's one thing that was really, really hard to do. Okay, and it took us a long time. Is with the ebook version, you just need the front cover because that's all you see on the ebook. But with the full version, the paperback version, you need a spine, obviously, but you also need a back cover, and the back cover has blurb on it, as it's called. Okay, now the blurb is the thing that when you pick up a book from a library or a bookshop, you look at the cover and go, yeah, I like the cover, and then you turn it over, and on the back there's a piece of text called the blurb. Okay, and the blurb is there to sell you the book, all right, but it's not there to give away the plot. Okay, so it's a really hard piece of text to write, because what you want, the blurb's function is to basically make you go, yep, I want to read this book, but the blurb's function isn't to give away any spoilers at all. So it's actually, and it's got to be short and punchy. Okay, so it's not an easy thing to do. So we spent a long time trying to work out what the blurb should be. But we eventually got there and put it all together. So the ebook was launched about a month before, and we wanted that because ebooks are easy to update. So if we did find grammatical fixes and things during read-throughs, we could update things easily enough because it's just electronic. Once you publish a paperback, it's done, right? So the ebook was done first, almost like a sort of dare I say it, beta product, for the eventual release of the paperback. Now the ebook is easy compared to the paperback. Okay, we were able to generate the ebook quite quickly from the master copy of the Word document using some tools. Paperback is different, okay, because paperback has to, the thing with an ebook, as if you're familiar with a Kindle or any kind of ebook reader, you can change the font size yourself. So there is no page formatting per se in an ebook, because obviously the size of the pages depends on the size of the font that the reader is using. We don't know that in advance, so we just let the ebook reader sort it out. Paperbacks don't work like that. Paperbacks have to fit on actual paper. Okay, so there's some work to be done. So as you can see here, is there's 6x9 paperback final .docx, then there's final 2, then there's final 3, then there's final 4. We ended up with 4 different finals. I think final 4 is probably the last one. And so if I show you some of the complexities in here, okay, so what you have to do is Amazon very helpfully, because it's Amazon who we publish the book with, they provide you with a template that allows you to fix various bits and pieces, okay? So there's lots of little details that you've got to figure out when you publish a book. And it's very important, here for example is the inside cover. Now you'll notice here that there's more white space here on the left than there is on the right. Even though all this text is centered, you'll notice that there's less white space here and there's more white space here. Why is that? The reason is because a paperback book has a binding edge, or a hinge if you like. So the bit where the paper is stuck together at the hinge of the book is sort of dead space that you can't use. All right. That's right, Ewan's exactly right. Finally, I really mean it this time, finally, .x, exactly right. But, so this bit here is dead space. Now, on the next page, the opposite is true, okay? Because the hinge is now, for this perspective of this page, is on the opposite side, okay? So the template has to understand that the text has to be slightly offset left and right, depending on whether you're on odd or an even page. Okay, then you also want page numbers to appear, but you don't want page numbers to appear on all the pages. You don't want the page numbers to appear on the cover page, but you do want them to appear on subsequent pages. Okay, then you also traditionally have different headers for the even and odd pages, and then you have to make sure that the thing flows, and we decided to go for left justify only, which is fairly common. And then we had to make sure it all fitted. Another rule is that generally chapters or new major content sections always start on odd numbered pages, so that you're kind of, when you open your book, it's it always starts on the right hand page. All right. So you'll notice that we always start a new section on an odd numbered page. Now, of course, when you're writing this, how likely is it that every single story is going to end up on an odd numbered page? Well, guess what? They don't, okay? So then you have to tweak the text subtly to make it flow across the right pages. And then, of course, you have to do that in order, because if you muck it up at the beginning and then make a change, and everything subsequent to that gets altered. So it's a real faff, is what I'm saying, and it took us a long time to get that to work, but eventually we did get there. Okay, so if you want, again, all of this can be done yourself. Okay, but do not underestimate how much work it is to get it right. Okay, and you will be swearing at your word processor by the end of this process, because it's distinctly not trivial. Okay, it's distinctly not trivial. But there we go. So that's actually I think that's one of the later versions. You can see this is a version. The other thing, little things like, let me just go back to my story just so you can see the idea. Time separators. Okay, so when a certain period of time has gone past, so you'll see here, and we've used 3 stars to indicate passage of time. Okay, so that's a standard thing that we had to agree. How are we going to show passage of time, and how much passage of time needs to happen to justify a passage of time marker in the book? Okay, so all of those things are things that you have to think about. Basically, I'm using it here as a scene change. When things change scene, then there's a passage of time market telling the reader it's a scene change, okay? And so on and so forth. So all of those things you have to agree and make consistent throughout the entire text. And eventually you end up with, like you say, a massive Word document like this that we can submit to Amazon, okay? Now I won't show you what that actually looks like because that's painful and very slow. But Amazon will then take your Word document and will churn through it and basically tell you off and tell you all the things that are wrong with it still after you spent all your time editing it in order to get it to work. So we spent quite a few weeks just going, okay, now we've got to go through that 20-minute process again because somebody forgot to put a space at the end. Or it's flipped onto another page. Why is it flipped onto another page? We don't know, etc, etc, etc. And then we had to incorporate all the changes that we'd found in the ebook version where somebody said, oh, there's a spelling mistake there. Damn, we've got to go and fix that in the paperback version now. So you have all those version control problems, etc, etc, etc. So it's long and hard and complicated. This is the end result. But we did eventually get there. Now, Glenn also did do, bless him, some other promotional stuff. Now, what you can actually hear now, this is a treat because what you can actually hear here is some of the authors of the books actually reading some of their stuff. So this is little excerpts from the book read by the authors in order to promote them. So I'm going to switch over to those for a moment. So you can kind of hear some of the stories, very, very, very short bits of them, from the voices, the actual voices of the 9 streams of Conscious crew. Here we go.
I was 35. I would be 84 upon arrival, if I could survive to that age. My family's history of heart disease and the effects of hyperspace while not in stasis made it unlikely. Being subjected to isolation for decades would take its toll, psychologically and physically. I stared at the rows and rows of my sleeping shipmates, their silent dreams I would never know. They would arrive, but I would be dead.
Halfway through the room, she sees a father holding a sick child with eyes red from coughing. Seeing such an ill child takes her out of herself momentarily, her doctor instincts overriding her anxiety. The father looks like he hasn't slept much, holding his sick child close, tears frozen in the corner of his eyes. The man notices Deborah standing and staring. "You've come back here just to see what disease looks like?" the man gruffly directs at Deborah. Deborah is taken aback by such an aggressive comment. The man noticing her body language. "Take a picture or keep moving. Or both. I just don't care. Just leave us alone." Deborah noticing all the symptoms of lassititis, the cough, the rash, and fatigue.
Beyond Inverno lay the vastness of a Cerberus sea. If he didn't find the wonders beyond the eastern sky by then, he would have to turn back. He puzzled over the line in the poem, the flames of the marbled orb. Did it really mean something? Or was it just the poet's fantastical dream?
So that's a small excerpt. So that was Stephen, Alan, and of course Glenn reading from their stories. Apologies, as I switch between those modes, the chat gets zapped, which is a bit annoying. So welcome back, Steve. You can tell who's British and American there. Casper24 says, "Hi Drew, do you use Word for all of your writing? Have you ever considered typesetting, markup language and tools like LaTeX?" Must admit, I find Word, because I know it so well, and as you can see, I'm still running Word 2010 because I haven't upgraded it. Simply because I know it inside and out and I'm really familiar with it, and I just know how to do everything I need to do. And I suppose after so many years, I've spent so much time, it's instinctively can just find everything now. and maybe I'm getting a bit old to learn something new. I'm productive, and I think that's the key thing. Is there are other tools out there. A lot of people swear by Scrivener. I have heard of LaTeX. I have heard of a few other tools as well. But this is the one I just know. And when you're doing a lot of stuff for yourself, particularly things like Amazon and various other bits and pieces, they just work better if you give them a docx file. And I know that's a bit of a monopoly for Microsoft, but at the end of the day, I don't really want the technology to become between me and the productivity and the creativity. I like Word because I can just dump stuff into it. I know how it works. I can copy and paste, move stuff around, reformat things how I like it, and I don't have to think about it. That's useful for me. I wouldn't upgrade at the newer ones. Yeah, so I must admit I don't like the new cloudy Windows 10 versions. I like these old Windows 70 versions, and I'm going to keep them as long as my PC will keep running them. So I bought them. They're properly licensed. I bought them myself years and years and years and years ago, and I'm just intimately familiar with them. I definitely swear by Scrivener. Oh wait, that was at. I tried it and I just thought this is a ridiculously complicated way of doing things. So I'm quite happy just playing around with Word. No, your mileage may be different. Okay, so you may wish to try something else, and if it works for you, if the technology doesn't get in the way of the creativity, go for it. Is what I say. But I haven't got time to evaluate lots and lots of different tools. Most of my time is simply spent typing, and that's not going to change because at the end of the day I'm just writing some text. OpenOffice, absolutely fine. The only problem I found with OpenOffice is some of the formatting stuff that it does that is arguably, or at least it says is 100% Word compatible, just sometimes isn't. It's caused me some grief in the past. It may be much better now. Pages for Connor on the Mac. Notepad, nice and simple. Yep. So whatever works for you is good as long as it works. Okay. So that's the important thing. So your technology poison of choice is entirely up to you, and that can sometimes be quite a personal thing. I get that. However, sometimes it's worth going into Word just as a final thing before you upload to some of these sites because they just work better with native docx files. That's just a word of warning. A lot of things that require input, i.e. things like Amazon and some of the other things like Lulu, just work better with plain vanilla Word documents. And whilst things claim to be 100% compatible, they just aren't always. Okay, so bear that in mind. So there you go. So all that sort of stuff. So a simple word processor is better in some ways. So don't use too many of the Flash features. That's all important as well. So that's quite a good thing. So that's good. So what we ended up with is an ebook version and and the paperback version. And basically Amazon then promotes it. Then we had to set prices and we had to set the distributions into the various different countries and so on and so forth. And then of course we had to promote it. Now some of the stuff that Glenn was doing there with the videos was part of our promotion. We put it out on Twitter, we put it out on Facebook, we put it out on different forums, we put it out on here. And hopefully for people to get interested in buying the book. Now it's not a path, dare I say it, to fame and fortune, alas. We put a lot of hard work into writing these stories, and it was a big exercise in learning things as well. And as an anthology, actually, we've done all right, but it's not. None of us have become multimillionaires overnight, alas. It's just not a thing to do. So be very careful of wanting writing to be a lucrative thing. It very rarely is. Do it because you love doing it and you love telling stories. That's far more rewarding for you. So we still have the holiday lower prices on to go back and fix that. I'll go and have a look at that too. So another set I've got. I think I'm in this one. There's another set of readings here. So let me go and play those because time is ticking on. So here we go. Let's switch that off for a moment. The blast and resultant shockwave killed everyone within 100 kilometres of the impact point. with the rest of the island set ablaze by the heat and debris. A vast tsunami rocketed northwest, inundating the southern corner of India as far inland as Madurai, later causing further widespread death and destruction along the eastern coast of Africa and Madagascar. It had been the greatest natural tragedy in the history of humanity.
A ray of sunshine shone through a gap in the clouds, glistening golden against Sophia's spring-cleaned skin. She looked up and saw Richard. His first thought was to quickly duck out of the way, but that would have only made him look guilty, so he stood his ground. Sophia did the same, making no attempt to cover herself, light sparkling off her wet body.
Doctor? Oh no, lab technician. The man furrows his brow. You look smart. I bet you could have been a doctor. Look smart? How can someone look smart? She continues laughing. You just do. Oh, I see. You must be a lead scientist, Tal says jokingly. The man's face beams as he replies, Maintenance. They both laugh for a moment.
The woman was badly injured. Fresh blood was smeared on one side of her face. Her suit was ripped and bloodied through multiple deep slashes. She shook as if chilled, her jaw clenched. Wide eyes were filled with tears which streaked down her dirty face, yet she tried to maintain a posture of strength while she gasped for every breath of air. She paused, and then she spoke.
So there we go. So thank you very much to Glenn for producing those things. They were actually really, really good. I'm very happy with the little promotional stuff, and it's nice. Now, actually, a question from Steve, one of the authors there. What happened to the audiobook version? Now, we could still do that. Now, the trick is audiobooks. Having done quite a lot of work on this, audiobooks are the third sort of pillar of book creation. Okay, and I did a stream on audiobook creation, a few months back. And the problem is, I mean, what you're doing is, okay, so you've got an ebook, okay, so you've got 100,000 words of text, excellent, yeah, you've got an ebook, congratulations, okay, you've formatted all that into a good shape, okay, and decided what pages to put it on and what size the font should be, and so forth, and you press the publish button. Now you've got a paperback, well done, you've done a good thing, okay, and then you want to turn it into an audiobook, right? Okay, so what you need then is you need somebody to stand in front of a microphone for about 24 hours to read all that out and not get bored, and do it in an engaging fashion that matches up with what the original author wanted from the story. Okay, and you have to have a good speaking voice that can maintain its pace and tone and characterization over those hours. Okay, so you need someone who really likes the sound of their own voice. Hey, it's me. No. Now, I am doing, as you know, my own audiobooks for Shadewood. I'm most of the way through Shadewood 4 at the moment, the last one to get done. Now, I could do 9 Streams of Consciousness, but the simple fact of the matter is time. It's merely a matter of time, because not only a typical audiobook of 10,000 words, let's say, is about an hour of speaking. That's about how many words you speak in an hour, speaking about the same speech rate as I'm speaking now. Okay, if I was to waffle on like this for exactly an hour and you counted up all the words that I've spoken, it would be about 10,000. So actually, interestingly enough, me wittering away on these streams for 2 hours every 3 days is probably about 20,000 words of nonsense. Okay, that's about the number of words I'm speaking. So that gives you an idea. Okay, so the average book length, something length of 9 Streams of Consciousness would be about 100,000 words, which is about 10 hours of audio. Okay, maybe 10 to 12 depending on pace. All right. Now that's something that has to be recorded. Now, believe it or not, when you're in front of a microphone reading from a book, you don't always get it right. You know, sometimes you say things that aren't actually in the text at all. It's amazing what happens. So you tend to make some mistakes, okay? So for 10 hours of actual good quality recording, you'll probably have something approaching 24 hours of actual recording that you then need to edit down to 10 hours of good recording, okay? So there's probably at least a day's worth in total of just standing in front of a microphone recording stuff again and again and again, trying to get it right. Then you have to edit it, which takes an awfully long time. And then you have to do all sorts of various audible quality tweaks and things to get it ready for upload, break it down into chapters and so on and so forth. In short, it's a lot more work, okay? So the amount of, and the starting point for an audio book is that you've actually already done all the hard work and created a book in the first place, and then the hard work of an audiobook actually starts. So the audiobook is a very expensive thing to create. I've had to record my own work for editing purposes, can barely get through a paragraph. It's quite hard work. You do get better. It's another thing that gets better with practice because it's a performance, okay? Now, then you've also got, particularly if you're, and it depends on the reading style that you're trying to adopt. Now, for those of you who listen to my Shadewood stuff, I have different intonations for the different characters. Now, I don't try and do sort of falsetto voices for female characters because I can't do it. I'm not that good a voice actor. But, I do try and put different mannerisms into the speaking, different emphasis and those sort of things, so you as the reader can kind of pick up, oh, it's so and so talking rather than so and so over there, all those sort of things. So all of those things are things that you have to consider when you're creating an audiobook, and you have to remember to keep the same intonation, because you can't just do 24 hours of speaking, all right? You can probably do an hour to 2 hours at a time maximum per day, because otherwise you're actually going to damage your voice. Actors and actresses have these problems as they have to manage the amount of stuff that they do, particularly if there's some strong stuff being spoken, or people are shouting at each other or getting angry and all those sort of things. You're straining to get those voices across. You can actually damage your vocal cords. I've done it. There are problems with that. So there's only so much you can do in a day, and then you have to have absolutely perfect quiet in order to record an audiobook. Okay, and that's surprisingly difficult. Now, I don't live in a particularly noisy part of the world. I'm quite fortunate where I live. I'm in a cul-de-sac area. There's no passing traffic. I have relatively quiet environment around me. But you wouldn't believe the amount of noise that happens. Okay, the central heating comes on, dunk 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 in the background. Okay, that's ruined that bit of the recording. Bloody Spitfire flies overhead. What are you doing up there? Go away! Or there's a dog barking down the road, or a bird lands on the roof. I mean, they're really incredibly noisy. The space birds. Yeah, when the space birds are out. For those of you who don't know my stream, won't know about the space birds, but the space birds they're okay for just general Twitch broadcasting, but you can't have space birds. Basically, I have a tree. I'm in the study, which is in the corner of the house. I have a tree outside, and at dawn and dusk, the birds gather. And in the summer and spring, because it gets quite warm, because I live in the south of the UK, I tend to have the window open. These wretched birds are singing outside, literally probably about 10 feet away, and they're merrily doing what birds do in the evening, which of course doesn't quite jive with the deep space simulation aspect, particularly when I'm playing deep space games. So the space birds are quite a feature of my stream. Now, space birds are no use when you're trying to record an audiobook. Okay, you don't want birds in the background of your serious audio. Oh, it's a lovely bird song you got in the back. Well, that's not supposed to be there. So you can only record when the birds aren't doing their thing. So that's a problem that I have to wrestle with. So birds, dogs, wildlife, things landing on the roof, the central heating system clicking in and out, just general weird things like at the end, if it's a hot day, I can't record when the sun goes down because I can hear, or at least the microphone can pick up, the sound of the house contracting. Okay, so you hear these like click, click as the house cools down. The microphone picks them up. So there's so many things that screw up your recording, you wouldn't believe it. And then that's before you get, you've got the rest of your household. Okay, so the kids have to be out at school or work. Generally, my wife is really, really good. She'll sit motionless for an hour while I do some recording, because I'm like, but you can't have people creeping around outside your room to do recording, because the floorboards will squeak. Microphone will grab that straight away. You can't lean on the desk. The microphone will pick up the clunk of your elbow. That. It's just all over the audiobook. Or and if you turn the page, as you turn the page, all of those things are just fundamental physical problems in recording audiobooks that you have to deal with. You wouldn't believe and of course what you have to do is you have to record it. You think, actually, that's really, really good, and then you have to put your earphones on and listen to it back, because the vast majority of people who listen to audiobooks listen to them in earphones. Okay, they don't listen to them on speaker-based stereo systems, so you have to listen to them back in headphones, and headphones are really, 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 really good at highlighting all the annoying little inconsistent, strange, wacky background noises that things generate. So audiobook creation is really hard. Okay, you can sometimes spend 2 hours recording and have only 10 minutes of usable actual audio come out the back of it, so it's a faff. Okay, it really is a faff. So this is my life as an audio guy. Thank goodness for direct recording. So at least some stuff you can plug in, but vocals, and basically an audiobook is basically 2 hours of vocals. Okay, well, actually no, it's 10 hours of vocals. All right, that's what you're dealing with. So if you're a musician, you want to record 10 hours of vocals with no background noise whatsoever. That's the problem. And so an audiobook is really, really high maintenance, and that's just doing it yourself. Okay, now you can of course go to a professional studio where they'll have really, really good high quality sound insulation, all the latest gear, and a sound engineer who knows his stuff and will bring you in and out. Now all you need to do then is to be really, really good at reading and not make too many mistakes. Okay, and then at the end of the day you'll get a sound file and you can go home and edit it yourself. That's a good way to do it. Now the only problem with that is if you want to go to a studio, it's going to cost you some money. That's where the problems start. Okay, so there are ways of solving all this, but they cost. Okay, and if you want to have some variety in your storytelling, let's say you want some female and male voices in there, unless you've got a lot of willing family actors who are good, are happy to do it, then you have to start thinking about voice actors, and those guys need to earn a living as well. So guess what? It's going to cost you a fortune now to create an audiobook. So all that sort of stuff. So if you can build yourself a complete audio rig where everything is floating and not connected to everything else, then great. Now, alas, I don't have the capability or the space to do that, and most people don't. But if it's your career, I completely understand why that would be a thing that you would invest in. But it's not necessarily an option for all of us. So you're stuck with that. You can either do it slowly and painfully, which is sort of the way I do it, or you can use a sound studio and stuff like that, but of course that's going to cost you money. So all those are the problems that you have to deal with in generating an audiobook, and that's when you've got to the end of all the other processes actually generating a book in the first place. It's an investment. If you're going to do a lot of it, then fine, but you're going to have to work it. Now the only flip side to that, I would say, is that particularly nowadays, and I've noticed this change quite a bit over the last decade since I've been doing writing seriously, is initially when I started out, everything was paperback. Everyone was kind of ebooks. I'm not really, really fond of ebooks. I want a proper book. Okay, so it was all paperback. About 5 years ago, ebooks and paperbacks were kind of in parity. I was selling as many ebooks as I was paperbacks. Nowadays, I'm selling mostly ebooks and audiobooks. and not so many paperbacks at all anymore. So there's definitely been a shift, and whether that's a demographic shift as more and more younger people start getting into books, but they want to consume them digitally or audibly rather than in dead tree form. I don't know, but I've definitely noticed a shift to ebook and audio in the last few years. So I'm spending a lot of time going through my back catalogue of stuff to make sure it is available on audio. But of course it takes time, so it's always a challenge. But and that's just an observation. Now, I like a good paperback as well. I much prefer a paperback in general terms to other. But that might be. I had a very interesting conversation with one of my guys at work actually, just recently, who basically said. He said, I said, oh, I'll take a copy of that and I'll print it out and have a read. And he just laughed. And I said, what are you laughing at? He says, read, print. So old school, Drew. And he basically said, anybody under the age of 35, he says, I don't deal with paper at all. Why would I want to print something out? He said, I don't have a printer. I have a laptop. I read it on there. And he just said, yeah, I think virtually everybody who's under the age of 30 probably doesn't print anything anymore. He just says, why would we? You know, what's the point? And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he said. And like you say, there is the storage problem, and books take up a lot of room. You know, I've got a lot of books, and I've noticed this actually when people come round to my house. They go, "Oh, look, there's a bookcase," and I go around to other people's houses, and there just aren't any books anywhere. You know, people don't have books. It's just, I don't know, maybe that's where I live, but so I do feel a little bit of an anachronism. Yeah, it's I don't know, just observations really, but there we go. So, in kind of closing, 9 streams of consciousness. Now, you know, what we set out to do is, you know, a bunch of people on the internet collaborating through Twitch who most of whom had never met each other in real life. Some of us had, but most of us hadn't. Set out to publish a book from scratch, all the way through to the end of, you know, and produce a paperback version. So, you know, what we did the law, we did the writing, we did the editing, we did the production, we did the formatting, we did all the typesetting, we did the graphics, we did the layout, and then we published it. We self-published it effectively through Amazon, and it's out there, available for you to go and enjoy now. So if you do enjoy sci-fi, and if you've enjoyed this stream, now I'm sure Glenn will be able to dump a couple of links in the chat for you. If you'd like to grab a copy of the book, then please feel free. I think I was very proud of the work that we all did to generate this thing. And, you know, I suppose I would say that as one of the contributors, but genuinely, an awful lot of people worked very, very hard for a year. So what you're looking at with 9 streams of consciousness is easily, I don't know what they're called now. I mean, we used to call them man years. I don't know if that's a expression you're allowed to use anymore. Person years, perhaps, is the right thing nowadays. But there's at least 15 person years of effort that has gone into the construction of the stories that you will read if you do that. It's a piece of work. It's probably not the best piece of literature that's ever been published, but it is a law-based collection of science fiction stories with a central premise running all the way through it. There's aliens in there, there's tragic stories, there's poignant stories, there's love stories, there's all sorts of different stuff in there, and a variety of different pieces from 9 different authors. And what you may find is reading it is that you think, actually this author, I really like the way they write. Have they written anything else? And the idea that I hoped it would be for many of the people who contributed was a springboard for them to go, I'm capable of writing a story, and this is a start for me to go on and do some other stuff. And some of them definitely are very much doing that, and all the others are very much capable of doing that if they so wish to. So we got that out of it at the end, which is a good thing to have actually achieved. So kind of in summary, then, well done, really. To all the 9 stream of consciousness. It was a big project. It was an ambitious project, and many times within the process, we were, I think, close to folding, and basically giving up on the project. It was hard work, and there were some low moments in that entire process. But we did make it. We pulled together. We encouraged each other. We got each other up and going, and we got across the finishing line. we did make it a thing, and we got there in the end. So so well done to all those authors. I was very proud of what we achieved. I think it was well worth it, and it's a unique thing. We did it via Twitch. Okay, we collaborated on this very stream, pulled it all together, worked together on the stream, and got it done. So it was a thing that we did. I think we can all be rightly proud of it. Available in Dead Tree format and in digital format as well. So there we go. Daddy Hoggy's had a lot of rejection since Nine Stream of Consciousness was published. There we go. Okay, well, keep going, Daddy Hoggy. I'm still having those sort of things as well. You never. I don't think you ever get past that. Surreal's just bought it. Oh, thank you very much for that, Surreal. We all appreciate it. So it's very good. So hopefully a few of you will enjoy that and have fun with it. So and see what you think. Do let us know, of course. Do let us know. For those authors, I will be doing the royalty calculations this week. I promise to get those done. So I will be in touch with the fruits of your labours. And we'll work through on that as well. And I'll get in contact with how to transfer the proceeds of all that sort of stuff across. So I Wonderful, he's got it, but needs to find time to read it. So that's excellent as well. So so hopefully you'll enjoy it. But if you enjoy a good sci-fi yarn, you should enjoy those kind of things. And they're short enough that if you come to one, you think actually I don't like this one, then there's another one not too far ahead. So depending on the some people like certain things, some people won't. So there's lots and lots of variety in there, lots of different styles of storytelling and other bits and pieces in there. So it's all good. It's all good. Oh, and please do leave a review. Okay, so reviews are very, very important to visibility and success on books. The more people who review a book, the better. Really, really, really always a plea to readers. If you've enjoyed a book, please review it, particularly on Amazon, because it makes a massive difference to authors. Amazon has a bit of a, as you know, there are all sorts of calculations and algorithms and stuff on these websites nowadays, but the review algorithm is quite important to the book's visibility in search results, so all those sorts of stuff are quite good as well. There we go. So it makes a lot of difference. That's really, really good. Can we leave a review on Amazon if we didn't buy it? I think you can, actually. You can review anything, but Amazon puts up a little verified purchase by people who actually bought it, and those reviews, I think, count far heavier towards the algorithm than the ones that don't. And if your review is a bit sort of copy paste of something generic, Amazon generally picks up on those quite quickly. They're very smart people at Amazon, so be careful of spamming different reviews. So there we go. We've had some very favourable reviews, and a lot of hard work went into it, and so we've tried to do all those kind of things, but it's been good fun. So and hopefully this stream just gave you a bit of an overview of what we were trying to do. So there we go. So huge thanks to all the people involved. 9 authors, 15 stories, 100,000 words, all edited together online without actually meeting each other in person. That was quite a project management achievement in of itself, so it was a good thing. So there we go. Anyway, my friends, it's time to close up shop once more for Monday evening, and 3 cheers for the authors. Yes, hip hip hooray! Excellent. I will be back on Thursday for. Well, I assume I'll be doing some Elite Dangerous. I'm assuming the Alpha 4 will be out by then. I think it's switched off at the moment, so I don't know if it's actually on or not. But we'll do something on Thursday. We'll try and have some fun. And then Saturday we continue the not very well organised playthrough of Frontier First Encounters, which is happening on Saturday. So all the usual stuff. So anyway, you guys obviously look after yourselves. Have a good week, and I will see you later on. It lands on Wednesday, as it said, Commander O'Connor. Brilliant. Okay, that's just in time for me to update my account. Have a fantastic evening, my friends. And if you want to check out 9 Streams of Consciousness, please do. You can find it easily on Amazon. That's the fastest way to get hold of it. So, and you'll make lots and lots of authors very, very happy. Take care, my friends, and I will see you soon. And right on, obviously. Take care, my friends. See you soon.